Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our special council meeting. First of all, I'd like to call the meeting to order. We would like to begin by acknowledging that we are in Robinson Superior Treaty Territory and that the land on which we gather is a traditional territory of the Anishinaabe. Can I get approval of the agenda? Any disclosures of interest? Hearing none, we'll get right into the unfinished business, the 2022 preliminary budget.
So what you have before you is the capital works wish list identification of projects. Some of the projects that are on here are carry forwards. That's what the CF means. That is that it was a project that was started in 21 or prior, and it will be continuing on in 2022. This is the list of the expense portion. It doesn't have any kind of revenues, whether it be through taxation revenue or through grant revenue or transfers or anything like that. That's not included on this. This is just a list to identify the projects. So if we wanted to start out with the first section, your AMP, Asset Management Plan, there's we started the second phase of that. So that's a project that is carried over from 2021. I don't know if you want me to go through them line by line or what is your preference? The only other thing that I would say is the stuff that's highlighted in green has already been to council presented, which is basically the water and the wastewater stuff and the issues that we have with the grader. So if you would like me to go line by line or just highlight what I think there is.
You can do a quick version of line by line,
okay.
kind of like we did this morning. I mean,
okay.
I found that
helpful,
quite knowledgeable. Yeah.
Okay, so there are some projects that are identified on here that we're identifying. For instance, the boiler here at this municipal complex building, that it is old. We're not suggesting that we do anything with that particular item. It's more for council to be aware that it is aging infrastructure and that there's the potential for something to happen. The accessibility doors was on most buildings. That is a project that was identified in the 21 budget that didn't have any action on that. So that is on there for 2022 as well. In regards to the fire department, the first three items are have to do with the building issues. And the remaining sections are the capital stuff that was already presented to council previously, and that's what that wish list is for Schreiber Fire Department. Right. So I included it in today's meeting too, so that if anybody had any questions on what was in there, the priority is that initial list that was presented, because the majority of those items are annual replacement of infrastructure, such as the turnout gear. There's some equipment for sort of remote rescue, whether it is somebody who has been hurt on the trail, or to help to aid in the suppression of forest fires. That I mean, I know the MNR generally comes in if there's a forest fire, but sometimes we do respond and provide assistance for that. The communications, really it should be included and will be included at the next presentation in the operating budget. The biggest requirement has to do with the SCBA upgrading. So there is a significant request in here for the compressor. The reason for this request is that we need to do mandatory training, which is the firefighter 2 and the hazmat, for example. Those are two examples of the training. And in order to do that, we're supposed to have the updated cylinders. So you may recall that we had the 2000 PSI cylinders and we're upgrading to the standard of the 4500 PSIs. The compressor that's on here is to be able to fill it. Right now we're using the old compressor to fill and you can't fill them to their capacity. So there really isn't a lot of room here to change any of the requests that are on here. And even just with the cylinders themselves, you're supposed to have 60 cylinders, and right now we do have the 2000 PSI cylinders, but right now we only have 4 of the 4500 PSI cylinders, which is the standard. So that was just to go through that. If I go back to the electrical upgrades that are on there, this is to upgrade the panels in the building itself, at the fire hall, as well as a generator panel or a plug, and I will go for the right terminology to our director of operations for that. I don't know if it was actually, it's a separate, I think it's a separate panel is what it is. So that the generator can
like
be
a pony panel that supplies, that you can switch all your power load over to the generator.
So that, because that is one of our emergency control areas, right?
Okay.
And sorry, I should correct that. It's not for the entire power load of the building to go to generator. It was key components like their communication center, getting the doors opened, lights, minimal heat, just bare minimum to get through a situation.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's the fire department. We did include, in addition to the capital requests from ARPA, which are the ones that are highlighted in green, we did, subsequent to that report in November, determine that they're looking for hardware updates for their SCADA system. Got a new price on the dam inspection and repairs. The dam, part of that was budgeted in 2021, however, we didn't have a contractor come in to look at anything, so that's should have a carry forward from 2021 on there.
Who would have done the inspection?
I'm not sure who the vendors are that there was some communication.
At the time, we were trying to get concrete walls to come in. There was some difficulty getting them to schedule that.
Is that 35, is that whole thing carried over, Marley?
No, I believe it was, I think
Just
it
a
was
portion.
10,000 that we had budgeted in 2021. I will tell you that. Yeah, it was 10. We had budgeted 10,000 in 21.
When was the previous inspection?
When was it? I don't know.
I understand that concrete walls was in to inspect it, getting closer to the fall, and the weather happened before the repairs could be made.
Yep.
So based on their inspection pictures and information that they already had,
Okay.
this is concrete walls updating their quote.
All right. Thank you.
The Ontario Street reline and the wastewater treatment plant dechlorination, both of those are highlighted in yellow because we are waiting for confirmation of funding in order to do those projects. There will be, should we be fortunate to get the funding, there will be a portion that will be the responsibility of the township for those projects, but nothing as of this point. The wastewater treatment plant electrical building upgrades is a carry forward project from 2021. This number represents phase 1 out of, I don't know how many phases it was.
4 phases.
4 phases. So this is the first. This is that we are required to perform the upgrade. So that's what that's for. And the air distribution failure happened earlier, has already been approved. It happened earlier in January, I believe it was, right? So that wasn't included initially in the November presentation to council for AQUA. The next section is the Public Works Department. The majority of the items on here have to do with our equipment. And you do have the, later on in the agenda is the purchase of the loader, you'll see that it is included on here as it is a priority, absolutely necessary. I can let the Director of Operations speak to that. The grader is highlighted in green because we did have issues with the grader earlier in the year that have come to the table and they have been corrected. I will, perhaps it would be a good idea if Tammy would like to speak from this department, or I can continue. I do like to talk, so.
You're fine. If you give more on the information, I can correct
You'll
you.
correct me. Okay, good. So we do have some safety issues for the trackless, which is the brakes. And the hopper, we're suggesting that we need to change the spreader hopper because it's rotten. The idea with that though is, of course, we would salvage everything from the current one to have for spare parts with the new one. The sander itself is in good shape. The truck itself is in good shape and has longevity if the question is should we be replacing it at this time. We're also looking at, in an effort to try to mitigate the very crazy increases that are going on. Number one, for insurance purposes, we had like an over 30% increase this year to our insurance rate. We're suggesting to put the GPS cameras into our fleet. So that is being included in there and recommended to be done. The buildings, we have a couple buildings that we have leaks that are going on, so we've got money budgeted in there for those. We're also suggesting to continue with the security cameras. We do have security cameras in the community hall, the arena, and up at the Discovery Center. So this is to put the security cameras in the municipal complex, the public works garage, the library, and on the outside at the medical center. And that too has to do with reducing your risk, it will all aid in the reduction to your insurance premiums. And the floor machine, there are two floor machines, one for this building and one for the community hall arena that will be shared. In recreation, we do have tables that have been brought forward from a couple of years now, so we're recommending that. The emergency generator is to identify that there is a need at this point in time. If I was closer to the lock, I would touch the wood, but should we need to be able to have power, if we lose our power, it's an important thing to have. Is it a priority this year? Right, it depends. Entrance doors are carry forward from 2021. The floor machine we talked about, the community hall, the east wall was on there. They were still doing some research on the need and the way to fix that or change that, upgrade it. The deox for cold water floods is something that's been on before, but has not been identified as a priority or a need either, but it's on there just to tell you that there's an option. The otter swim raft for the White Sand Beach, that was a couple years ago that was pulled out of service, and really due to the whole pandemic situation was never replaced. So we are putting that back on there. The park replacement is on there. Again, it's not necessarily a priority or something that is being recommended at this point in time, but it is something that has been on there. Handy transit van, it's scheduled to be, we generally do every 5 years, we upgrade the handy transit van. That is 100% funded through the provincial dedicated gas tax fund, so there's no cost to the taxpayer to purchase the van. The next stuff is the planning and development section, and that has to do with the ongoing project for the Discovery Center in downtown. The majority of what's left is the downtown for the 2022 budget year. So that number, that is an estimate. We'll come up with a once the final 2021 numbers are done and we know what we're anticipating for 2022, I believe we're hopeful at this point in time that that project will be completed early in the summer. But we'll have that better figured out to find out, because that's the biggest part of that, is how we're going to fund the unfunded portion, the township portion. How much of it will we borrow, how much of it will we do a transfer, so that is yet to be determined. A housing needs study is being put forward as a priority from the Planning and Development Department, as well as a trail engineering and feasibility study. There is an application that is going forward for full 100% funding for that study, but again, the application has just gone forward. We don't have anything at this time. The museum car floor needs to be replaced. This is an estimate of what that would cost to buy the flooring. We have it's about 80 feet by 10 feet, so it's about 800 square feet that we're talking about there. The other two items that are in here are the Discovery Center merchandise, so that would be, it's the purchase of whether or not, you know, are we buying t-shirts, keychains, magnets, whatever it's going to be. So we're waiting for that list to have an idea of what that will be. We're thinking somewhere potentially between the 3,000 to 5,000. Well, you know, it will be to. I wouldn't suggest that we go completely overboard this year in what we purchased, but to have an idea of what's available out there and what to have on hand, and then we'll see. Then we'll be able to see what actually is popular or whatever. And then signage. This is the MTO permit, the fabrication of the signs and the install of the signs. These have to do with the two welcoming signs as you're entering the community. So those are to be upgraded. There is potential funding available in there. However, the permit fees would be our responsibility. I'm not sure if there's a maximum, but we don't have any confirmation of any funding either. Didn't have any estimates on fabrication or install at this point in time.
I can't imagine how trail engineering and feasibility study, you come up with a figure of $50,000. Like, I don't get that. Like, we're talking about the hiking trail?
We're talking about, I believe, and this is for Community Economic Development Manager Dominic, I believe it is the portion from the Schreiber Beach east to the picnic table, is that right?
So it'll be from Hobbit's Corner to Schreiber Beach. So essentially we'd be looking to have an engineer go down with a trail builder.
Yeah.
And essentially be going through and marketing out what particular areas would be looking to be hand built and which particular components for replacement would require engineered renderings, such as the bridge replacement.
Right. Have they been here already?
No, so that would be coming into this season.
Right.
Yeah.
Huh. Interesting.
And the idea, again, is to try to get it covered with a grant. So,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, so we won't have to pay for that out of taxes.
And then do the work would be,
Well, I wonder if whoever is going to be doing this, Dan, has any plans of utilizing some of us that are extremely familiar with the whole trail, like, you know, for advice of some sort or whatever.
I'm sure we'll have some input. I know Matt's involved in this, so
Yeah,
he's deeply involved. So.
right, okay.
That housing needs study, is that grant dependent?
That one, there hasn't been luck in acquiring any funding for a lot of studies, as a lot of grant bodies have moved away from that, and more so with project implementation at this point. I did reach out to CMHC, and there was no luck from them to get any funds towards it, so that would be taxpayer dependent.
So,
Okay.
So how would you go about doing this, Dominic? Would you hire a consultant?
Yeah, so a consultant will be brought in and they would be doing work for that. Study for reference, if you're interested, is actually Horn Payne's housing and feasibility or needs study that was done in 2019. I was in communication with them with regards to potential consultants to look over,
Okay.
to getting some feedback from, so.
And that was kind of the cost of,
Yeah, so they got their cost back in 2019, and then we just we subjected it to inflation and
Right.
and contingency as well.
What does this study get us?
Essentially, to provide obviously we know housing needs gap and understanding the direction that we kind of need to move forward, where they could provide projections over an X amount of years period, to seeing what can be done in the community for housing, as well as potential avenues to look at, whether if it's existing land that we own, or if there would be any sort of need to go to different bodies for additional property acquisition, or identifying based on the demographics the types of housing that would be the best suited for our area. And in conjunction with obviously present employers' employment gaps and their projected needs for housing over X amount of years, so.
Okay, so I think another portion of that maybe that we could look at is, like, I don't got a problem with it if it's all grant, 100% grant or whatever, but anyway, that's for another day. Maybe we could talk about just putting out sitting down and having a good talk about a good survey, and surveying our community and kind of reaching out to people wanting to come home or something like that, and what would they be interested in, like, in kind of thing, and that way we have our community input, and then if we have to go out and grab some study or whatever, so be it, but we'd have our community input, which would be if we get people downsizing and all that, what would they like to move into, or
Certainly something like that, so
yeah, I mean, we might, if depends how you put it out there, we might get a lot of community interest in that, if people wanted to downsize or for whatever reason. Anyway, I just thought I'd throw that in.
To specifically answer your question, Dave, they're just looking at what they covered in that study, and it was with SHS Consulting, sorry. And it covered housing demand, housing supply, housing affordability, housing gaps along the continuum, and then strategies for bridging the housing gaps. And from what we heard, part of the survey that was, part of the study that was released helped bring attention to potential developers into their community.
Okay.
and I guess the bottom line is housing is front and center right now in our community. There is a shortage of housing, and we need to look at, how we can improve that, and that's something that's going to be ongoing for a while, so we have to look at this from all angles, I guess.
So this is just information, heads up, we're just gonna digest this for a little bit.
Just
and-
digesting.
And then talk about each
Yeah.
thing after.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the only action out of what is in front of you is the loader on the other, like
Yep.
during the other business. And just to put it out there very quickly, I did a quick calculation on a levy increase. So if we're talking about what percentage of the levy increase do our starting point is just over $2.1 million. So a 3% levy increase on the average residential home, which is the average CVA assessment on a residential home is $55,000 here. So a 3% increase would be a $75 increase on the tax bill and on it for the year, compared to all things equal, compared to 2021. A 6% increase then obviously would be $150 approximately. So that's just to give you, sometimes a percentage increase can be frightening, but the reality is not quite as bad as it is. So, yeah. So yeah, the only
and
real
that would
was.
allow us to do all this?
Oh no.
No, okay.
You're a funny guy.
Okay. Some more fun information, thanks.
So what are we doing here, right?
Yeah.
We're done.
Yeah. Okay.
That's fine.
Okay, thank you very much for that.
Yeah, thank you.
We can take that back and digest it and look it over and, okay. Move on to other business, and the first up would be Director of Operations report on the electrical upgrade.
We have the recommendation that we enter into a service agreement with Automation Now in the amount of $160,566.66 plus applicable taxes. As you know, unfortunately, again, we did not get that $700,000 in funding. So we're looking at now breaking the electrical upgrades into phases and initiating this phase as we have officially received an ESA order. They want us to start this as soon as possible. So that's why we're expediting at least this phase one so that we get the ball rolling for the electrical upgrades for the sewer plant.
So of that 160 some odd thousand, how much is offset by sewer rate increases, and then how much is, or is it all coming out of?
3%.
So this was part of our, so we did have, we did factor in 2021, this was part of the budget. We had budgeted the 200,000 to do all of that, and that was coming in, let me just look here. We were doing part of it from a transfer from reserve and part of it from borrowing. So the payback for the borrowing portion was factored into the water rates. Yeah, sewer rates, I'm sorry, yes. Yeah.
I'm gonna continue looking for funding. We're gonna continue lobbying for funding and the hope is really to cover everything from the electrical upgrades to the dechlorination. It's again very difficult though when you have to competitively apply for these conditional base grants where there's no guarantee if you're getting it, and we know that with communities all across Ontario and in Canada, there's this major infrastructure deficit. Everyone wants the same little pot of money, so it's becoming very difficult to compete and fight for that money. It's almost like you need to have the perfect grant released in order for you to meet the eligibility criteria and match that eligibility criteria as much as you possibly can.
So the recommendation here is to move it forward, so you'll be bringing that forward Tuesday night?
Tuesday.
Okay. Number 2, Director of Operations, loader purchase report.
The recommendation here is for council to accept the quote from Stromco in the amount of $250,875 plus applicable taxes. If there's any other further questions for Tammy on this loader?
What do we have now? Is that a Volvo that we have now?
We have a case 721.
A what?
A case
A case?
721.
Okay, so the case.
But that, the existing machine would be still in service, or?
It'll have to stay in service until this one comes in, but,
Or is it-
it's dying quickly.
It's limping around.
It's getting tired.
So we're not going to invest in that machine to keep it as a backup or anything like that?
Right, we could sell this, if we take the workload away from this machine,
Right.
we could we'll put it on, Gov Deals and we'll start at the base price that we've been provided as a trade-in value and see where it takes us.
Yeah.
I believe that we could get in the neighborhood of 50,000 for it,
Yeah,
and then we can put that back in, but, under a lesser workload, the machine will last somebody quite a long time,
Well, how
depending
long-
on the workload that it faces.
How many years did that machine actually do its job?
So does it have to-
It is a 2007,
2008.
2008, and to be honest with you, it's the first piece of equipment out of the garage every single day.
14 years.
But
Yeah,
Does it say it got 9,800 hours on
yeah. And Case recommends rebuilding motors at 10,000 hours.
Yes.
If you rebuild the motor, you still have a transmission that has the 10,000 hours on it.
Yeah.
It just going to snowball from here. It's losing power as, you used to be able to go up a hill, in fourth gear. Now it drops down to 2. So it's a good indication that it's getting very tired.
Yeah.
Hydraulic pumps are starting to make a lot of noise. It's just it's snowballing.
Sure.
No, I think we've been putting it off long enough, and
Yeah, I mean,
I think we have the money, and like Tammy says, it's always first out of the garage in the morning. It's worked all 4 seasons of the year, and it doesn't owe us anything. And like you say, if we put it on Gov and we get money for it, we put that back in, and
Would that be purchased like from a Thunder Bay company, or do you shop around, or?
For the new loader,
Right.
I've got several quotes.
Yeah.
So far, we've gone to Strongco, we've gone to Brandt, we've looked at Case, I've looked at smaller machines. It doesn't make any sense to go to a smaller machine. I'm trying to match exactly what we have now. If you go smaller machine, it just increases your workload, takes you longer to do.
Yeah.
We're aiming to be more efficient, not less efficient, so I've kind of focused on keeping it the same size. You gotta look at your different loaders as well to make sure that you've got good visibility around. When you're working in a municipal setting, you wanna make sure that you can see behind you clearly and around your tires, and not all loaders offer that. So this one does meet all of our desires, and I think it'll be a good machine.
And it's the cheapest.
It's
Yeah.
the cheapest, yes, yes,
Is that right?
and it's,
yeah.
I like that it's Strongco, they're here all the time, they're so,
They have
they're
been
good
good
to us.
providers, yeah.
Yeah.
That
you
feels
said-
good going with them.
And you said parts are readily available, which is,
The issue is again the long lead time, so that's why it would be good if, we get this decision now. Because,
Yeah.
what was it, about
8 months, they're saying, so
was-
we need to put they're saying that they're always in production of making these things, but what they're doing is once they get a sale and we put our name on it, then we kind of jump ahead of just regular stock. So the sooner we can put our name on it, the faster they'll start production for us, and we should see the machine in about 8 months.
so the recommendation here is to accept the quote from Strongco, and we'll bring it forward Tuesday night. Everybody okay with that?
I think it makes sense.
Yep.
Okay,
We shouldn't have bought new tires today.
thank you. And
In the sale.
I believe that's it for that part of it. Now we go to the CQNS investment readiness study.
have you been in touch with CQNS?
Yeah, I just reconfirmed with Bill to sign in to the Zoom meeting.
Okay, and you should be joining us shortly.
Okay, I gotta get out of the way then, eh? Swing around.
Much for the tires?
Did we spend $20,000 on tires?
Thanks.
Okay,
The tires were what, $20,000?
When did we do
And
that?
then didn't we do another like 26,000 on like some other repair?
This,
Prob-
like in
the last-
21?
I feel like in the last 2 years, we've spent 50 G's on that loader. So remember, it went up for something, and then it needed tires, and then it needed something else.
It's the last years where you're spending all the money on it, the last few
Yeah,
years.
so we should have probably did this a year ago in hindsight, but maybe that won't happen anymore. Maybe we'll be more proactive.
that's
You
life.
never know.
That's life.
Yeah,
We're
it's life.
gambling.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that's right.
Damned
Always
if-
hope for
Who,
the best.
who
Damned if
thought,
you do, you damned if you
Yeah.
don't.
who thought that would happen to the grader, Dave? One-
No,
one of-
exactly.
one of
No, I
the
know.
better, you know,
You never know. Time are these guys joining?
They were aiming around 3:45, so
He
just
just,
initially.
he just messaged me saying he's going to log in.
Okay, perfect.
there's you.
Did you win?
I forget.
What'd you get?
Free trip?
I gotta ask, bring the whole cup in, because I just ripped it. Muffin.
A muffin.
I'd like to see, it was in the pharmacy in Marathon,
Still living.
yeah. But, no COVID test there.
No.
Do you want one?
No, I got some at Thunder Bay. But they were selling them
Yeah,
for $40 for two.
for two, yeah, I know.
But they don't have any of them either.
Same in, they were selling them in Nibbigan too.
Should become
Yeah.
a black market cause
There's gotta be somewhere.
it's a box from school. You got like a jillion at the school.
Yeah.
Wow, yeah.
Hopefully we won't need them.
Yeah.
Breaks. We did breaks last time. And tires. Tires in 21 as well, early 21.
But then the year before or something last year.
That just adds to the sale of the used ones.
That's what she
That's what I said.
Yeah.
Oh, that's,
Yeah, that's what she said. And we'll make it back in the sale of it.
yeah.
She's right.
On the, in the advertisement, we keep it, we tell them.
Brand new tires.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Barely used. Do a huge dump of snow tomorrow, it's gonna die somewhere.
The differential. That was a big one in 2020.
You wanna answer Beth Stewart or
Yeah.
you will?
Yeah, so the question really is what's next?
Have this log
Oh, yeah.
into that.
Well, Corey said,
Fix the engine.
Corey said it's just like
When's the
a
warranty
week and a
then?
while.
Yeah.
He said it
Well,
January
I
to
sent you
start
the
it to
email.
make it work.
Yeah.
I sent you the email, but when I went.
Super
to
safe,
give
though.
that invite,
No one's watching.
I forget what it said.
I know.
It wasn't registered yet,
No. Mutter.
so it just me
Mutter,
and you.
mutter.
It's good. Strategy.
And then I suppose that they'll let us know next week if it's on or not.
Did they do these? Like, did they make these? I feel like I've seen them and stuff like this. Like, did they make these? Did they make these?
Yeah.
Like both of the things at the bottom, those last two things?
Yeah.
Neat.
having a problem logging in.
There's no logging in required.
He's
Just
right
have
there.
to click the link.
He's right there.
Oh, perfect. Hi, Bill, can you hear us?
There we go. Yes, I can. How is everybody?
Good, good.
Good.
Okay, why do you not have my, you got a mugshot of me there? I don't know. Oh, there we go. Start the video. There we go. So what's the weather like up there, guys?
A bit warmer.
Well, that's good to hear. That's good to hear. I don't know if you're like me, but I'm getting sick of it. But it's it's supposed to be real warm here on the weekend, but I don't think it's gonna last.
It's the weekend again, so we got 20 centimeters more snow coming.
Oh, no way. No
Yeah.
way.
Yep.
Oh, is there a lot of snow on the ground up there?
A tad bit, yeah.
I guess that's a dumb question, huh? Well, Dominic has kind of kept me up to speed on some of the weather. He actually took his laptop one day and showed me a picture outside the window, and I went, "Oh, you can keep that." But yeah. So, Dominic, have you got the PowerPoint there, or should I hook it up through?
Yeah.
Through
Yeah, you
Zoom?
probably hook it up through your,
Yeah, Bill, you can share your screen, so I can give you that capacity, and that way whatever's on your screen will share through your feed.
Okay, let me see if I can get this done. I've got it set up on my alternative screen, but let's see if that will host disabled participant screening. Oh,
I've
I guess
just
you-
enabled it right now.
just enabled now. Okay, so let me try this here. Okay. All right, let's see if this will do it.
Perfect, we can see the presentation.
Oh, you got it. Okay, good. Good show. Good show. Well, I just wanted to go through this, and then if you have some questions, and I think you've hopefully you've had a chance to look at the report and to look at some of the marketing materials and things like that. And then if you have any questions, let's have a little Q&A. And this presentation is just sort of a quick overview of what we went through. I think I'd never used this before. There we go. There we go. I think that's a familiar shot everybody's seen of Schreiber. So just to quickly go through what the scope of the project was, obviously was to develop an action plan for investment attraction, and hopefully from there be able to assist in population growth and some real estate development and business development and various sectors there. So the first thing we did was we did a bit of a high-level competitive advantages value proposition and overview. We did do a very high-level retail sector gap analysis. And when I say high level, and I think I addressed it in the report, very difficult, number one, in terms of the size of the retail space, but number two, in terms of what was happening with COVID and the pandemic and everything there, and especially with some things going online and that. So it wasn't to abandon a retail gap analysis, it was to say, look, maybe it's better to come back and visit this a little bit after we get some other things in place. Then, of course, develop some promotional marketing initiatives and for the Discovery Center as well. Then we did an actual investment attraction plan with goals and objectives and some tasks and some suggested costs on some of that. And we've gone through that with Dominic, and we'll continue to go through that because we still need to do the final thing, which is the development of target leads for recommended industries and businesses to look to invest, to attract investment. We're kind of waiting to present this to council and then talk about some of the recommendations possibly, because it may have an effect on how we go to market in terms of doing some marketing. So we like to say that we go through a sort of a process of discovery, design, delivery, and then deployment. And that's exactly what we did in this particular project. And as I said, we did the high-level competitiveness review, identified what was happening in current economic sectors in Schreiber and more broadly. You can see the regional, and we kind of stuck to the north of Lake Superior area to do that sort of regional analysis. We did a real estate analysis and then a review on investment readiness. Investment attraction is a little bit like using the acronym, the old, aim, ready, then fire type of thing, or, you have to have it in order. And so there's no sense to try to attract investment if you're not ready for that investment and have certain things in place. So investment readiness, I always like to say you never get a second chance to make a first impression. I don't even know who said that. I've been saying it for so long, I guess I'm thinking that I said it, but I'm sure there was somebody much smarter than me that said that originally. But looking at areas of community involvement, placemaking, business network associations, some type of a community hub, what's the branding, and is it a consistent branding message? And then what tools can EDOs use to make their job easier and more efficient? So we came up with these sectors, or identified what we thought were the main sectors in Schreiber. And obviously real estate is one of them, and what you've done in terms of taking down some of the older buildings and having some lots available and that type of thing. We think that entrepreneurship is a sector that is there. It may be a little nascent, but certainly has the opportunity to grow. Immigration. You've been successful in attracting some immigrants to start up businesses or take over businesses in the community, and that's even without a formal program to try and do that. Obviously, we know that long-term sectors that have been there are natural resources, which is prevalent throughout the north, and of course with the railway and transportation being there. Retail is there, and hopefully we can do some things to help that grow. And then I think there's a great opportunity in terms of tourism, and I think the opportunity was there long before COVID, but I think with some of the attitudes and the way people are looking at traveling and things like that, I think that will only enhance opportunities for tourism in Schreiber and other communities along the North Shore there. So we did some designing. So we've got a bit of a website landing page that we'll be using for any campaigns that we use to do some marketing. Online real estate directory. We developed an investment attraction brochure and sort of doing business in Schreiber, and then the Discovery Center brochure. And hopefully you've got copies of the investment attraction brochure and the Discovery Center brochure. You guys hear me okay? You're so quiet there.
Yeah, no, we can.
Oh, okay, sometimes I get talking so much and I cut out and I don't even realize it and just keep on talking. So we set up this action plan, and it's a little bit more detailed than this, but I just wanted to do some highlights of the goals and objectives for each area. So obviously real estate, the goal is to sell and develop vacant lots. And so the objective, who do we engage in terms of being able to do that? Prospective developers, whole builders, and hopefully new residents. Entrepreneurship. You know, what's the goal? Well, to create an entrepreneurial culture much greater than it already is in town. And so what's the objective to do that? Well, put together some programs and services to support that. I mean, the Small Business Center in Terrace Bay is integral to that, but there's other things that can be done locally to do that and build opportunities for collaboration and networking in that space. Immigration, well, we've had success in attracting immigration to Schreiber already. What do? Well, let's put together a marketing program that's going to be targeted at immigrants to come. And not only that, but influencers who are in a position to advise them and that type of thing. And so we build a targeted list of those people and do it. Tourism. So tourism, I think there's great opportunities there. There is a foundation for tourism in Schreiber, but I think there's an opportunity to build it much bigger than what it is. And there's an opportunity to collaborate more with other communities to build that whole area there in terms of a destination for tourists to come and stay for more than just a day or a couple of days, but to come and actually make a vacation of it. So, and along with that has to come some product development and packaging and that. And so there's the North Shore tourism initiative that I believe Dominic's been working with, and that's a good start to go with that. In terms of natural resources and transportation, I don't think there's a whole lot that you can do from a town perspective in terms of attracting that, other than being ready for investment and saying, here, knowing what you've got in terms of infrastructure and that for any priorities that come. And I think from a political point of view, being in touch with the key movers and shakers, whether it be at Queen's Park or other areas in terms of what's happening and what's going on in terms of natural resources and other transportation opportunities. Retail, well, obviously you want to expand that retail base and everything like that. And so I think as some of these other areas grow and that we can monitor the retail space and if there's some retail that's for sale, which I know has been in the past, how can we facilitate some of that process and maybe assist a little bit in marketing some of that. And then a community hub. One of the things I noticed, there wasn't really sort of a community hub. And my idea of a community hub is a gathering place. I mean, it's some communities have entrepreneurship centers or incubation centers or those types of things. And I looked at this and said, I think there's an opportunity to be much broader than that in Schreiber. And it's really a community hub. It may have some aspects to it of, some entrepreneurship and incubation type space in that, but it's broader in terms of being a place where the community can meet and participate in a number of different things. So really build this collaborative nature and that in the community. So deployment. So one of the recommendations we made was to initiate a software package called CRM, which is a customer relationship management package, and that allows economic development to track all its contacts and works that it does and streamlines it and keeps it in one place and allows you to build marketing modules from there for online campaigns and email campaigns and different things like that, social media, track social media and that. So that's one area there. So I guess I skipped over to this second part, which talks about email tools best suited to work with that platform. Then the next thing is to develop, once we decide what's happening with real estate and what the opportunities are there, which we want to promote the most, develop a targeted list as to, who we want to send information to and look at going after to invite them to look at opportunities for real estate investment in Schreiber. Obviously, part of doing that is when you do that campaign is you develop specialized email templates and that messaging to be sent out to these target lists. The other thing is review what's the possible funding for 2022 that might fit with any of the action plans that you've got on the go. And I think in the report I made a list of a number of programs in that, and I know that Dominic has been, if he hasn't already applied to some, he has been working on some, and is familiar with some that you've used before. And then for us, obviously to follow up and assist in this implementation and deal with any issues that come up that we can assist with. So that's sort of it in a nutshell. Any questions you guys have, or?
Yeah, can you explain the community hub? Could you provide a few more details on that? Like, what are the opportunities? You said there's more opportunities or more things you can do, but can you expand on that?
So if you think in terms of, many of the center of many small towns is a community hall. I grew up in small town Western Canada, Alberta, and every small town had a community hall. And everything took place there, whether it be from weddings to various celebration of events, community dances, things like that. So that's sort of an initial concept, but in today's economic environment, I think it goes further than that. It goes further in terms of saying, how do we use a community hub? And that's why I call it a community hub rather than a community hall, because it's more than just a physical space. There is a physical space, but it's a physical space and also a virtual space. It's an organization. I mean, there's no longer a Chamber of Commerce or World Trade in town. And there has to be some mechanism to try and bring business together to communicate and deal with initiatives and plan initiatives and strategies to grow their businesses and deal with any challenges that they have. The idea that the government's going to do it all for business, forget it. If business doesn't get engaged themselves, nothing's going to happen, and that takes special leadership to do that. So I see that as part of a community hub. Typically why chambers of commerce fail, and believe me, it's happening in a number of small communities across Canada, is because they've kind of lost their relevancy in some ways to business. I mean, and so business is not engaged, and they're not seeing the value. And so what is needed is leadership that really can facilitate and get business involved and really deal with issues that business really cares about, and look at how that they can address those. So that's sort of one area of the community hub. The other is this notion of startup companies, entrepreneurship, that type of thing. For them to be able to have a space, whether it be, some terms that's used is called touchdown space, where, maybe there's some desk space that they can go in and access bring in their laptop and access the internet and work from there, and then do some networking with some others. The small business center can come over and run some seminars and programs there for small business people and for those looking to start up a business. The CFTC obviously can play a role there as well, and there is an entrepreneurship center it's called Thunder Bay and District Entrepreneurship Center, and they could probably provide some consultation and education and maybe some funding services there. And of course, you can make use of both face-to-face opportunities as well as virtual online connections. There is, and I think I pointed out in the report, there is this IDENO virtual business incubator that was established by FedNor, and whether that could be brought in and be a part of it, that may be. I mean, I think there's probably more home-based work from home businesses in Schreiber in the surrounding area than what we know. I mean, I came across a couple that I just had not heard of before, hadn't seen before, and talked to them. And one lady, she runs her business. It's a Canada-wide business that she runs. It's called Shop Local, but she runs that whole organization for across Canada. And she works. They live out at the lake, but she works all right across Canada. And she welcomed the opportunity. She said, if there was a space that I could maybe one day a week or 2 days a week, go into a business space where I could sit down and do some work and network with other like-minded individuals. She said it'd be great. So there's that. Does that kind of explain it for you a little bit better, or is there more?
Yeah, I think, did you say that we needed more information on starting something like this? Is that all in your report? Or you mentioned someplace in Thunder Bay or?
Well, I pointed in the report, yeah, it is in the report, and I point to some resources that might be able to give you some ideas and some sort of planning tips in that in terms of moving forward with something like this.
Okay, thanks, Bill.
And I guess the other thing is, and I don't know. I mean, things are changing. I realize, and so it's been since the summertime since I was up there. But in some of these communities where they've built some of these community hubs or entrepreneurship centers or whatever you want to call them, they've been very creative in taking older buildings or heritage buildings and repositioning and that type of thing. And in some cases, they've been able to access some funds from Heritage Canada then for some remodels and different things like that. So I'm not sure what's available in Schreiber to be able to do something like that. But an example is in the town of here, and they're actually one of their churches is United Church is sort of its congregation is dwindled, and they're having a tough time keeping up with repairs and maintenance and utilities and things like that. And so they're looking at using that space and converting it into sort of a community hub. And I believe that the church congregation will still be able to hold services there, but by and large it'll be repurposed for something else. And town of Beamsville, they have an old fire hall that they repositioned into a community hub. So there's different opportunities there, and I think in some ways they were able to get some senior levels of government funding to be able to do some of that.
I had another question on the municipal accommodation tax.
Yes.
You talked about that. Is that something we're missing out on, or is that a missed opportunity from your perspective?
Well, so I think it's a huge missed opportunity. I mean, I could understand if your hospitality partners felt that would make them uncompetitive price-wise in comparison to other communities. But that's not the case. I mean, Terrace Bay, I think now this is what they're going into their second year or third year of having theirs. And, when I spoke to them, I think the number they shared with me was that they raised, I think, $20,000. $20,000 may not seem like much, but if it's put towards beautification programs or, placemaking enhancements and things like that, it's great. And it's not taking any money out of your community. It's being paid by visitors. And, I think all of us have traveled and stayed in different places, and, we got our motel bill, and there's a tax on it, and we pay it, and don't think twice, we go on to our next destination, right? To me, it's a very non-obtrusive tax, and it's going to add, it would add very little to the cost of a hotel room or a motel room.
So how do you go about collecting that tax?
Well, so that is a good question. And I gotta go back to where we talked about it and see what I've got in here for that. I think that, on Terrace Bay, I think they're utilizing the CFDC to collect it. I'm not exactly sure, but it is an arm's length organization that I believe is collecting it.
They're actually working with Superior Country and administering.
Superior Country, yes, okay, yeah. Dominic, I knew that you would know that. And so they use it, and it's kept separately for, specifically for Terrace Bay, correct? It's
Yep.
not like they ensure that there's no mingling with other communities, funds or anything like that as well.
Yeah, they have their own particular agreement with their arrangement with Superior Country in terms of what they wanted to concentrate their revenues into in terms of tourism, marketing, whatever they decided.
Yeah, so I think when I spoke with them, they had kind of split 50-50, I think, in terms of some money was going towards beautification and some money was going towards marketing. Is that correct? If I remember correctly.
I believe that's what Stacy told me as well.
So,
Yeah.
So our local vendors are collecting a tax from visitors and putting it into marketing their businesses and this area as a destination or a place to come and visit. So it's kind of win-win as far as that goes.
Yeah, I did talk to some of your motel people about it, and there was certainly some resistance. And I think part of the resistance was that I don't think they fully understood what the tax was and how it worked, to be quite honest with you, because, yes, it's going to increase the cost of the rooms, but it's very, very nominal in terms of what it's going to increase the cost of the rooms. And it's just not going to make them competitive with other jurisdictions close by.
So is that just for accommodations only, Bill, or is there something else?
So it's just for accommodations only, and I think there are some communities who have tried to do it more broadly, into food services and different things like that. But by and large, it's motels and hotels mostly. And in the report, I apologize that I'm flipping through here. In the report, I think I provide a link to where you can gather detailed information about the municipal accommodation tax. We've got the report here. But yeah, that's, oh, here we go. Yeah, I do have it. So yeah, as a matter of fact, there is a news article that I allude to. The headline is, I haven't clicked on it, but the headline is, new accommodation tax now collected in many northern municipalities. So, it's not like you're really going out on a limb and breaking new ground here. It's you know, it's something that's pretty acceptable. Typical rate is 4%. So I mean, if you're renting a hotel room for $100 a night, it's $104. I don't think anybody's going to not rent the room for an extra $4. And of course, it doesn't affect locals unless you have reason to book a hotel room and stay in a hotel room yourself. Then of course you can. But and it's not just an Ontario thing. It's broadly based across Canada and the U.S. This has been my experience. And to be quite honest with you, I used to do a ton of travel internationally, and I can't recall whether I was paid an accommodation tax, but I'm sure I did in some of the other jurisdictions, some of the countries that I stayed at. So I think the key thing is that making sure that if you're going to go ahead and do this, is to make sure that the people that it's affecting, the motels and that they totally understand what it is, and then making sure that there's a pretty seamless and uncumbersome way of collecting it and submitting it. So, I mean, if they have the proper accounting system set up, they're submitting HST on a regular basis, and this is just an additional area that they would show and submit. I thought maybe I'd get some questions about community improvement plans and real estate incentives. I know that you've got the community improvement plan sort of in the works or have been approved, but maybe not implemented. And that is that an area you want to talk about? Would you like to talk about?
Sure.
No?
Sure.
Pardon?
Sure.
Sure.
What do you suggest?
Well, I show some examples of some communities that have done some pretty crazy things. And so I guess I approach it from the premise that real estate sitting there empty is not generating any revenue for the town. And probably in some cases it's actually costing the town because of upkeep and things like that. So if you're not collecting taxes on that land, it's redundant. It's totally redundant. So if you are to offer some tax incentives for people to buy and build, some people will say, well, you're giving tax money away. Well, no, you're not, because it's tax money that you didn't have anyway. And so, and if you are doing an incentive, you're doing it for a specific period of time. And the way that the program, if you design the program properly, it should, repay itself fairly quickly over a period of time. So I think I mean, one of the extreme examples I give is in, I go back to the section, it's in Smooth Rock Falls. And they've done it with both commercial properties and also in terms of residential real estate. And like they were reimbursing purchasers up to 90%, or selling for 90% below market value, just to get them to buy and come in there. I showed another couple of examples. Dauphin, Manitoba had an incentive for developers at one time. They called it their $1,000 per door program, where if somebody was building a multi-unit residential property or whatever, they received a $1,000 rebate for every unit that they built in the development. And then Pipestone, Manitoba, for example, had a grant program where they would actually provide 3% of the building cost up to $6,000 for a new home. And then they would also had a grant program for a property which was 10% of the assessed value up to $32,000, along with a municipal lot program. So I take a look at this and say, look, if you can do incentives that aren't really, I mean, if you're not collecting taxes on the property now, and you're providing an incentive to reduce taxes to incentivize somebody to build, it's not a cash out of pocket expense, right? It's money that you weren't collecting anyway. So you're just providing abatement, and you're looking to once that period of time is over that you've had, you're going to start collecting taxes on the property and bring people into town to shop and do things there. So increase overall revenues in town, and that so you get a return on your investment there. Like, do you think it's an affordability problem, or in terms of vacant lots, or whatever, or is it just?
I think as a group, we would probably sell an empty lot for $1 if we knew someone was gonna build something on it. But
Yeah.
there's just no interest.
Well, but here's where, so in order for us to do some marketing, in order for Dominic to put together a marketing plan to go out and say, look, how we're gonna market some of this stuff, how we're gonna talk to, whether it be home builders or developers or different people, that, and, that has to be a policy that's in place. We can't just go and say, well, if you come, we'll think about selling it to you for $1. It's got to be sort of a structured program that you can use to market and say, hey, come to Schreiber, here's what we've got, here's what it's going to cost you. Here's what all the other benefits and attractions are to being here and that. I guess the other thing is that we've also looked at, and I think that, and Moody, you and I think we talked about it a little bit when I was up there, that there's types of alternative housing as well that's being done right now. I think I showed a project where they're building housing in Cambridge, and it's a multi-unit sort of apartment building, but it's all built out of sea containers, and I tell you, you really have a tough time thinking that was a sea container house or apartment building. It doesn't look anything like it, but it's very functional, and they're able to build it faster than that. Obviously, there's the modular home segment and stuff like that. Different guys doing things as well, but it's if you have that policy in place, then good. Let's go out and market it and see what kind of response we get.
Yeah, something we've been talking about lately, Bill, is that aspect of housing, and it's front and center in our community right now. So we've had some discussions on how we're going to approach this, and we do have some ideas. So it's just going to take some further discussion, and we'll move ahead.
Good.
And the good thing one of the good things that we do have in our community is the fact that we have empty lots that are ready to hook up. They're service lots and they're ready to go.
Absolutely. I mean, that's a very good point, that there are, fully serviced lots ready to go, and as far as I understand, no impediments to going there. And then I guess the other thing is that, realtors and developers will always complain about red tape and everything like that, but I can't envision with a community your size that there's going to be a lot of red tape issues in terms of moving the project along for approval to do some things, as long as they're in compliance with the zoning bylaws and such.
Right.
So,
I think we're headed in the right direction, but it's just gonna take us a little longer to get there.
right,
You know,
right.
like Dan said, we've had these conversations and
Yeah, the other thing in terms of community improvement programs, in terms of so existing businesses and that, I mean, I'm not up to speed on your, your budgets and plans and things like that, but, I kind of look at, if you had, if you go back to the MAT tax and you use that for, some matching funding, and do some beautification projects and stuff like that along Highway 17 and that area there. It's not a lot of money, but it doesn't have to be a lot of money. And in some cases, maybe you can use it as matching dollars for maybe some senior level of government funding in terms of some of the programs out there. And then in terms of, Dominic, you've probably been talking to Superior Country and North Shore group and that, but I mean, there's tons of funding that has come out, for tourism and that, for specific projects and programs. Whether that has filtered down, to some of the smaller northern communities and that, I don't know. Have you had more meetings lately, Dominic, or?
Yeah, we have one within the next little while, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I can't emphasize enough, you guys know this, you've got the foundations for some great, tourism activities and attractions. But I think one of the issues is that, it's not big enough to capture somebody for a week or 2 weeks or whatever. But if you're able to collaborate and do that together with other communities, hopefully that will allow you to leverage more funding, number one, from senior levels of government to do some things. And number two, it'll allow you to build product and build some destination stuff that will allow people to come up there and stay longer and spend some time. So it's funny, when we were going through some of this entrepreneurship stuff and that, there's a lady I know that runs a very successful sort of hub in Guelph, and I talked to her and she's able to providing some ideas and different things like that. And where was it a call? Were we on a call, or was it in the email? Dominic, she said, "Oh yeah, I go to the Red Rock Music Festival every year or something. I drive through Schreiber on my way to the Red Rock Music Festival every year or something like that, right?"
Yeah, it was one of her email correspondence with us.
Yeah. So I think it's there's opportunity out there. And of course, as it grows, I think there's opportunity for new tourist operator opportunities and that to add. But part of it, as we all know, we've got fatigue, and if you guys are like me, you just can't wait to get to the other side, whatever the other side is going to be.
Okay, if there's no further questions, thanks, Bill, for joining us today and presenting.
Good. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
And
Bill.
if you do have anything, I think you've all got my email address, so don't be afraid to just drop me a line if you have any further questions. And Dominic, we'll schedule up a follow-up call.
Yep.
Okay, everybody, have a great weekend.
You too,
Okay,
Bill.
you too.
Thank you.
Thanks, it's great to see you.
Resolution 44-22, moved by Councillor McGrath, seconded by Councillor Stefan. The council accept the research and analysis report, Schreiber investment attraction and related documents as prepared by CQNS. All those in favor? Carried. Resolution 45-22, moved by Councillor Stefan, seconded by Councillor McGrath, that the meeting now adjourn at 4:27 p.m. All those in favor?